You're listening to a Time Machine podcast. Old Movie Time Machine. An adventure through time and or space.
Dishes are done, man.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Old Movie Time Machine. Oh, shit! All 90s? When did this happen? Well, several episodes ago. But if you're new here, welcome. This is the show in which we use motion pictures made in the United States of America as windows into the past. And we explore the world beyond the window, and we take a look at people from different eras, and we just check things out. How are you living? How are you treating each other? And what are you wearing? What's that living room look like? Things such as this. We are in the 1990s currently, and today, very special. I mean, they all are, but this one in particular, very excited to talk about it. 1991's
New Jack City. Yeah! Oh. Thank you, everybody.
You guys ready?
Money.
This is Daisy, by the way, your host through time and or space. That lovely singing voice you heard was my sister and yours, Carolyn Naoroz, and we are also joined by the one and only Shrishma Naik. Hey,
hello,
everybody.
how's it going?
Things are going great because I'm taking a gypsy cab through.
New Jack City. Yeah!
You ready?
We are ready.
Let's talk about how. Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry, I
That
love
Jack beat I've heard so much about.
Yes, it's that, but it's like that song is so good. Some people got to have it.
The music was great.
The way it's reusing it is great.
A minute of it.
Banging soundtrack. Okay, so let's real quick just in case there's somebody out there who maybe hasn't seen this movie. I think there's actually a lot because I left this movie, you guys, thinking to myself, why are we not all talking more about the film New Jack City? Because I think this is a great movie. I think it's, let's say I think it's a really good movie, bordering on great. It has great aspirations. Maybe it doesn't quite get there, but it's very, very close. And I'm very.
Can you give us Can you give us your quick synopsis? Because then I just have some bullet points that I really want to hit straight away.
Yeah, it's going to be free chat. Let me just. Okay, so this takes place in the late '80s into the early 1990s in New York, quote unquote, Jack City. It stars Wesley Snipes. We've got Ice-T. We've got baby Chris Rock here. It's a real rogues gallery of performers. And it's very exciting. This was directed by Mario Van Peebles, whose father, Melvin Van Peebles, was a very important African-American voice during the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. So this is a very, maybe not unique, but it's an early version of this thing that we've been talking about since our early episodes about the 40s, 50s, and 60s, which is representation of people who are not a bunch of white people in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. And I think this film is awesome for many reasons, but one of the reasons is the fact that we are seeing a mostly black cast. The director is black. This is a black story, black capital B. We're talking about African Americans here, all respect implied that goes along with that. And also black music, black culture is being brought through mainstream Hollywood in a way that was still pretty rare at this point.
It premiered at the Sundance Film Festival.
Interesting.
Is that right? Really?
Yes. I looked it up because I was like, okay, like I got to look this, not to see where it was released, but that was like what I was like. And then it was picked up by whatever, Warner Brothers or whomever.
Yeah.
So
and did you know
it would have been an indie film?
Do you know who vouched for Mario Van Peebles to direct it? Because Warner's was like, we're not sure if we want to invest in this. Clint Eastwood vouched for him.
Of course.
And was like, you should, because Mario Van Peebles is also an actor. He plays the lead detective in this movie. So we get to see him. But yes, so he was an actor in a Clint Eastwood film in the 80s. And so they had a relationship, and Clint was the one who went to bat to help get this movie made. So
he was the detective
sometimes he talks
sergeant.
to an empty chair about how much he doesn't like Barack Obama, and sometimes he gets black cinema funded. So there you go. I don't know.
So he played the detective sergeant.
I believe so. He's the one who is sort of running the Ice-T, the cops, basically, right? He's
detective sergeant. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's got the tie,
hot.
right? So
He is hot.
He's
you guys
super
like that,
attractive.
right?
Well, this is also
they were
this is
all
also-
attractive. I was like, look at these, look at Ice-T. Hey.
Yes,
This
exactly.
is yes. This is I mean, we'll probably talk about it as we go on here, but this is maybe the sexiest movie we've ever watched on this program.
Yes.
Like, there is some legit lovemaking scenes in this movie. With
David walked in the room and he's like, booty.
What are we
I was
watching
like,
here?
all right. All right.
But okay, let's bring it back. So real quick, again, this is important for the conversation. This is the entire conversation we've been having on this program for 60 plus episodes, right? It's just as we explore the cultural fabric, the layout of how the United States of America just exists. This is a big moment, I think, in an unexpected way.
My two things that I like that I really want to, I can talk your technical crack cocaine policies from the 80s, Reagan era shit all day long, but just stylistically on this movie, it was very Shakespearean. Like, it was that level of like the dynamic between Wesley Snipes and his like second in command, and that sort of Judas role but like some of those dynamics, it was very, and like the performances were so great, but like the drama in it was like a really Shakespearean level, like King Lear type thing, or like.
And I'll tell you, it's funny you say that, Carolyn, because I was watching it again this morning and watching Wesley Snipes, his performance. That's
so
what
good.
came to my mind. Was like, he's delivering this like it's Shakespeare.
Really well.
Yes.
It was a masterful, commanding performance as Nino. So
yes, absolutely. And like, so I felt like, and that was the entire cast. Like, I mean, you really like felt for Chris Rock's character. You felt for Ice-T. Like, I mean, and it was that kind of drama that I'm like, they are like more than knocking this out of the park. They like knocked this off the planet. Like, that's the level of performances. And I felt like filmmaking this was, because it was also very a tight movie. Like, nothing was excessive. I wasn't like, wow, I really could have cut this thing out. I was like, nope, this is all important to have in here. The other thing is that I kind of liked this era of, it was almost such high drama that then when we got into like the double-breasted wide shoulder pad and like some of the sets, I was like, this is almost like comic book villain. Nino got like comic book villain level, and I was there for it. Like, I was like, Dick Tracy or something like that. Okay.
You read my mind because, oh boy, you just said some magic words, Dick Tracy. I mean, because both of these movies, I think, stem directly from Tim Burton's Batman. I'm watching Wesley Snipes's, long table meeting room in the back of the spotlight, and it's all of these sort of this. And this came out of that film, the Burton, the '89 Batman, which was production designed by Anton Furst, I think. And it's just this it's a mixture of late 1980s with a Gothic and Art Deco sensibility from way earlier in the century, sort of combined and mixed with like comic book color palettes. And that's
the same thing we saw in The Mask.
Yes, sure. I mean, that's another like literal comic book adaptation. Started life as a comic, but I think, and for our audience who were not alive at the time, the '89 Batman was the biggest thing.
Oh my God!
Since Star Wars, I mean, legitimately, or it was massive. It was Harry Potter sized beginning of modern marketing for a film, where it's like, you're not just seeing the movie, you're reading the book, you're playing with the toys, you're wearing the pajamas, like the whole thing. And I think stylistically that definitely influenced Dick Tracy came out the year after, so it was like, oh, okay, comic books are a thing. Then we can definitely invest in this and go big and colorful like Batman did. I see it here,
right?
And I think,
and this film didn't. It only like went there. It crescendoed there, which is what I liked about it. Like you could see that Nino character really evolve over the course of the film, and all the characters evolved for sure, which was great. I was like, this is really great storytelling, really great performances. I mean, yes, the music was bumping and the dance was awesome. I was there for all those cultural things. I'm like, oh. But I just like the performances were so great. They were so great. So yeah.
So we'll take it back.
High drama, high
enthusiasm in the chat right now. I'm feeling it, but I want to check in with Shrishma Naik. Shrishma, had you ever seen this movie?
No.
Okay.
I had not ever seen this movie. But I think when you introduced it last week, you mentioned, Chris Rock's movie. So I was looking for Chris Rock to play a starring role. But really, this was Wesley Snipes' movie, right?
Yes.
But I know a lot of the references that came out of this movie.
Right.
Because they've become,
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Carter. You know what I mean?
The vernacular, of the day.
Tell me about it.
But also, I think, there are a lot of parallels to The Godfather, right? Because it's kind of... playing on the mobster role, and I think he almost idolizes
Tony Montana.
Italians.
Tony Montana, that character.
Oh yeah. Which I mean, is that not an inextricable part of hip hop culture at this point? Correct. I think that might come from this movie. I think that the connection starts here. I think.
Yes.
So my other thoughts on that whole like the mafia being inextricably linked to hip hop culture. I'm thinking very specifically of 2 HBO shows that came out after this, but I think that would have been heavily influenced by this. Like there's that whole episode in The Sopranos where they're kind of the whole record deal thing, and the recording artist is trying to get back like his uncle's like recordings or something, and
I kind of remember.
They kind of go into the history of Motown, whatever. Anyways, there's like this reflective moment from hip hop culture and their love of the Italian mafia, or their reverence of the Italian mafia, and like kind of reflecting back in that show, which is like a mirror of a mirror. It's so meta, that particular thing. The other thing is that for me, I'm like a huge fan of The Wire, and I can obviously tell like The Wire is directly out of this kind of high drama relationship between Nino. Like I can see Stringer Bell and like all those things like in there.
No, and I saw analogs between this and American Gangster. Like, I think Ridley Scott ripped off a ton of shit from this.
I think this movie sets up the archetypes that we see in a lot of law enforcement and gang movies, where you've got your undercover agents, you've got your confidential informants, like there's a lot of like archetypes that I think are set up in this movie.
And I think if we look at this movie in like today's lens, I think you can say that they're setting up very stereotypical archetypes. But I think considering that the movie came out in 91, it was, and I don't know how much exposure this kind of these themes had by the time 1991 rolled around, where it kind of exposes what was happening within the communities within New York, the influence of all the drug epidemic in the US at the time. And then they also hit on a lot of the politics of the time, where today I think it might be like we might give negative reviews because of the stereotypes that is perpetuating, but perhaps like because it was in 1991, it was like, oh, so this is what was really going on at that time.
I totally agree. Let's go back to the beginning of how did we get here? How did we get to this point where we can tell this story? Right. So we saw it in our first 50 to 60 episodes that if you're an African American person or Latinx or Asian, anybody who's not a kind of Euro white type person, you're not going to be starring in a major motion picture in Hollywood, right? We've just seen it. And even those who do break through, Sidney Poitier, perfect example. Right. His pictures are not given the funding or the care or love or anything like that from the studios in the same way that pictures that are, feature more white people targeted to white audiences would be. Just so. Now, that being said, I was reading this morning about race pictures, which are, it was a type of film that was made in the first half of the 20th century. And these were made not necessarily in Hollywood, but they were produced by white-owned film studios specifically for Black audiences. And so they're sort of very low budget, but they star all Black casts, and they deal with the issues that Black people in the U.S. were dealing with at that point in time. And there are so many of those issues to talk about. So there's that. And then meanwhile, in Hollywood, mainstream motion picture, big distribution, we're talking about, artistically, it's no more valid than something made in Omaha, Nebraska or whatever, but the mechanisms for delivering this to the masses, it's through Hollywood. The distribution center comes from Hollywood. So in that situation, you see these minority characters, but they tend to be, as we've noted, time and time again, in service to white characters. So if we see a Black gentleman, he is probably carrying your suitcase, or he is serving you a drink. Exactly. Right. So we saw this, and we saw it happen for decades, and it wasn't in a particularly blatantly aggressive way, but it's time shows us, the distance that we now have from that era. It's very clear to us that we can see how society is laid out in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. Like there's a hierarchy here based on the color of your skin or your cultural background or whatever. And this is what it is. And it's not fair because, again, the whole point of the U.S. is the equality. So, yeah, sure.
No, I think at the time everyone was under this belief that if we didn't have a white lead or the characters weren't white, then it wasn't going to have international appeal. So like they're not going to make as much money if there was, a non-white person in the lead role. But I think with time, we've seen that that's not true. And some of the biggest budget movies or the biggest grossing movies don't necessarily need to have white leads.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they don't even need to be from Hollywood anymore, to be honest.
And what a journey it's been for us to get to this point where that's the normal, So,
and I also think those movies that we were watching in the 40s, 50s, and 60s were still very much targeting more of an American audience, specifically, less international. Like I think now it's like, no, it's international, and the more diverse a cast is, the better it's going to be for you. And we clearly know that anyone can be in a lead role, and people will go and see it and watch it. Yeah. But at that time, if you think about World War II and all of that, it was still a predominantly white country. So therefore, economically, they just were like, yeah, we're going to, it wasn't even some of it was not probably even a conscious decision. They're like, the people with money that are going to go to the theater and do this and see this movie are going to be white people. Then realizing the whole reason we can get to a movie like New Jack City is the civil rights era.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Truly. So we have a confluence of all these things happening because we've talked about it in the past many times about the blending of art and commerce. So we're storytellers. We're trying to, the art part of it is these stories are the creators holding up a mirror to society. This is my interpretation of what I see around me. And then when you look at it, you will see your interpretation based on this thing that I have constructed.
Right. And also what in this confluence of things, the art and commerce, beyond that is just the history of the United States and saying, and just that economically, if we're talking about art and commerce, we're just talking about commerce in general, like our commerce of the United States when it was just colonies was built on slave labor, especially in the South. Mm-hmm. And that was where economic power was. Obviously, like, okay, we gain independence, but we're saying all people are free and equal, but we're not walking the walk and talking the talk. And even after the Civil War, we are still then okay, great, we're separate but equal. That doesn't work either. You know, it's like this inching forward of equality, and we're still not there. We're still not there for lots of people. But what we have after the civil rights movement is that, okay, we're gonna be heard. We are, a viable people, and we have to address the policies of the United States that are creating the inequalities. So even though you're saying we're equal, but your policies are denying people opportunities, whether it's through redlining for real estate, or it's for, access to education or healthcare, job access, whatever it might be, all of those things needed to be addressed. And then, like, this movie in particular is obviously pointing the finger at, Reagan era crackdown on crack cocaine and powder cocaine. And with those policies, vast inequities. That's why we have an entire generation of people of mass incarceration in this country. That is why, because at the time in the 80s, because they were like, yeah, we have a serious drug problem in this country. And it was a serious drug problem, like it really, really, really big, serious drug problem. We still have a really big drug problem. It's just opioids now.
Different kind of drug. Yeah.
Different kinds of drugs your doctors give you. But those Reagan era policies said that you could have 500 grams of powder cocaine, and you would automatically, if you were caught in possession of that, then you were automatically going to get 5 years. If you had 5 grams of crack cocaine, you would also get 5 years. And who was using crack cocaine? Our urban minority populations. So they had the higher sentence. If they had just 5 grams, they would get 5 years. But if you were selling to Wall Street with your 500 grams of powder cocaine, you get your 5 years.
Right.
Does that make sense?
So
like what I'm saying? Like, there's an inequity there in how those policies, like a huge inequity in those policies.
But wasn't there, and again, conspiracy, I don't think this is a conspiracy. I think this has also been, stated in some kind of documented fact. But wasn't the pumping in of the drugs into the communities also driven by the CIA activities?
I mean, there are all kinds of stories.
There are all kinds of theories, yes, certainly about that. I think what we, organized crime, like mafia crime, definitely was part of that drug trade. So then I guess you could ask like undercover agents. But anyways, I'm not sure CIA-wise if that's really what was happening. I think people just wanted to get fucking high.
I feel like that was, yeah. Anyway, so I feel like that was one of the stories that was out there. And I don't know if it's just a story. I think there was also, it was documented that this came out.
The CIA was doing all kinds of crazy shit.
Right.
Like it would not, I don't think I don't know if this would be a CIA matter though, because CIA is sort of a international,
right. But this was like kind of, they were trying to meddle in South America. And so they were making deals with like the local
I see. Yeah,
probably.
That would make sense for sure.
Yeah.
And that's where the drugs are coming from to begin with.
Okay, so this is the social groundwork for where this particular story comes from. And thank you for pointing out the iniquity, Carolyn. That's perfect. But just real quick, getting back to like how we can tell
about it. I'm still pissed about Reagan.
It is outrageous. But just to get back to the path, we're talking black cinema, you guys. For the first time, we're able to talk about it. So,
and just to talk about some I think this director, Martin Van Peebles. Mario. I think Martin was his dad. So he also came from a M.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think he's come from a line of family that's been in the movies that we're trying to promote, or at least make a name of some kind for Black actors and directors within Hollywood. But another pioneer of the time, I just want to call out Spike Lee, because I really, really enjoy his movies.
Of course. We'll be talking about him.
Right, I'm sure.
I mean, man, when we get to Malcolm X, by the way, talk about another bizarre, like me and my Titanic book, like me and Malcolm X at a certain age when I was 11 or 12. Like I watched that movie like 20 times. It was on cable. There was early 90s cable, slight detour here, was ideal because you could see everything. Like early 90s cable was the Wild West, and they just showed random shit. Like it was crazy. So like that's how little me, who spent a lot of time watching cable, would see a movie like New Jack City. It's because we had the Showtime package or whatever, so like, okay, this is on television, then I'm watching it, So this movie, Drop Zone, Dead Presidents, like all these early 90s, sort of like Black starring films suddenly became available to a wider audience. But okay, again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to the 60s, because in the 1960s, Carolyn, you just brought it up, the civil rights movement is fully underway, and we're starting to see the transformation socially that really, as ever, we like to drag our feet. So this doesn't quite pick up until it's the 70s all of a sudden. And the 70s, we haven't really talked much about because it strikes me as a slightly greasy, disgusting time. Just my take. Everybody just looks a little greasy in the 70s. Watch a 70s picture. There's a layer. There's a film on everybody and everything.
Like typically of polyester.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And all those synthetic oil-based fibers all over the place. So getting back to the commerce part of the art and commerce conversation, people like to make money. And so the machinery, let's call it the machine of Hollywood, that is the business. That's the commerce. We are taking, if you're lucky, storytellers, artists, creative types, we'll take your thing and we will give you a big cash infusion, and then we will get it out to the world and see what they think of it. That was always the dream. Nowadays, everybody has access to all of the same tools, and it's a fairly level playing field, at least on the internet. Anyway, internets, pardon me. And so we have Hollywood saying, look, there is an audience out there, like African Americans exist, and they will see movies. We know this because we made race pictures in the 1920s. So we can, this is a market that's not being addressed properly. And because, we're Hollywood and
we need to diversify to increase our revenues. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. It's good business. And so they do it like we were talking about with the Poitier movies, where it's like lower budget. And this creates a new genre that's known as blaxploitation, which is, exploitative films sort of cashing in on trends of the time, combined with Black actors, a Black cast and Black characters who are all sort of, they're given more screen time, but they're still playing, the exploitation is that they're still playing stereotypes. However, they're starting to get more creative control. Hey, by the way, listener, I'm a white man. I'm not here to I can offer you any insight into the Black experience, but I do have, I can read, and I do have total control over all six senses. So, I mean, I can see the world around me. Let's just see what's up. But anyway, so we have blaxploitation, and then we start seeing African Americans being involved more in the process. Again, Melvin Van Peebles, Mario's dad, he's part of this. He writes and performs in films, and it starts to give African Americans creative control over their story and the stories that they tell. So, yeah, the crack epidemic, that is the story of a big part of the Black population in the U.S. in Ronald Reagan's America. And you would
this film
being told in the same way through the eyes of Black characters and a Black director. And, it would, it would be white people making black stories, basically. So anyway, that's all I wanted to point out, is that now we're at a point where black people are starting to get autonomy over their stories and can share them with the world, and that is
it's freaking awesome because this movie is great.
Let's get back to the movie.
All across the board, and it is also, as we've noted, I would say socially and politically conscious film. Right. You know, I mean, they address some big themes in here, and even if it's just the sort of like Chris Rock character going through his rehab process, and that was kind of done in like a montage way, but like you could still see the struggle, and then when he was kind of like back in the story, like he's still struggling with addiction, you know, like that made it very, very humanizing.
So sad.
I know.
I was, and I think it's a great performance, and the way it's presented, like when he's struggling with that pipe, when he's, I really want to, you know, I really want this. You can see, like, I believe it. I thought it was great. I mean, he's
right. And I guess that's what I mean. Like, that wasn't the whole of the story. They addressed so many things, but so many things in a really succinct but very deep fashion where you felt for those characters and you could put yourself in their shoes. And, you know, I mean, I guess that's what I think was really masterfully done with this film, is that they took on and did an excellent job of telling a lot of these storylines, all of which approached different parts of like Black culture in the US, whether you're the drug kingpin or you're one of the detectives that's like kind of undercover, or you're the confidential informant, or you're the detective sergeant, or you know, of color. Like they did all of those so well. The women, even, like, those women were badass.
But I must say, like, it wasn't a great movie for the female. Like, there was hardly any female leads. I think there were two.
It's very male dominated. Yeah, I think
it was very. So, if I had to make one critique of the movie,
three. Oh, excuse me. Well,
there were
There's Vanessa Williams, who is Nino's wife, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's G's lady, who's also Nino's lady and wants to bear his child. Yeah, and then there's the prosecuting attorney too, Miss Dawkins.
Right.
But then there's also there's also the other woman who, like, man, she was always quick with the pistol whenever there was a gang fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like she,
so really,
I feel
they could have used more screen time. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like the girl who kept pulling the pistol, I feel like her character was very caricaturish.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was. It's there are some broad strokes for sure.
But that also, like, they do that kind of on purpose because that's like relieves the mental load of the viewer, where you're like, okay, it's a shortcut, exactly. Which is like, oh, we know what that person is, but she don't have your back,
right? But you're a lady goon, okay?
But you're a lady goon, so that's cool. That's different. We really haven't seen very much of that, so that's still cool. But yeah, I mean, I yes, that would be my only complaint. At the same time, I'm like, it moves the needle in more ways that I can be okay with it.
My only complaint would be that this movie is incredibly racist against Italian Americans.
You spaghetti eaters.
And I can say that as an Italian American, as a joke, because who gives a shit? But it is interesting to see that part of the story, which we've seen in other gangster pictures, typically from the Italians' point of view, because most mafia films tend to be from that POV. But here we're seeing a kind of a switcheroo. But it is interesting just historically, because Italian immigrants and Black people in the U.S. in the late 19th century, early 20th century, like they were battling for the same territory at the bottom, in a sense, of society, not taken very seriously by true Americans, quote unquote. So it's interesting to just see it from the other side of that, but it is. Yeah, that's a kind of a blip in the larger scope of this picture. But real quick, I wanted to talk about there's a line in here I did some research on, because remember way back in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, we were talking about how humor changes over time and things that used to be funny aren't funny anymore. In that case, it was Swell saying "in your dreams" to her brother's burnout friend who was hitting on her or whatever, and everybody was like, "Whoa, in your dreams? That's crazy!" And it was a huge line. This movie opens with "See ya, and I wouldn't want to be ya." And so I was like, okay, great. Classic line. That's old school. I love it. And so I was looking up the history of the idiom, and I think it starts here. I didn't see that phrase coming before this movie at all. So this is ground zero for "see ya, wouldn't want to be ya."
Wow.
Mark it down, historians. This is incredible.
Hey, we need that to be a drop.
Line. Yeah, sure. Oh, Carolyn, there's a sequence early in this movie where there are 3 or 4 of the best lines ever written for cinema in a row, I think. And it's when they're first setting up shop and talking about how they're going to get the Carter going and everything. But the first thing they got to do is get rid of that guy who's selling, shit outside the Carter, the Rasta dude.
Right.
So the sequence of lines goes, "Time to sing that fat bitch a lullaby." One great, amazing line. Next line is the gun mall, and she goes, "Rock-a-bye, baby." Amazing line. That's a drop. Third line, "Yeah, he's going to be hanging with Elvis." Like, oh my god! So we got Elvis. Elvis is still relevant in 1991. Next line, 4th line in a row. Wesley Snipes picks up the vial of the crack and he holds it up and he just goes, "Damn, crack." And then we flash forward into the future, but I was just like, that's an incredible ending to a scene. Like those, the sequence there of what people are saying is amazing. So that's great to see.
There's a lot of, I guess that's also why I would say like it had like a little bit of a Shakespearean like lilt for me, because a lot of the slang was like, and it was very rapid lines of like they have their slang that is like they like flow with it.
Yeah, it almost felt like a better, like if you compare it to Romeo and Juliet, it almost felt like a better written script.
1000%.
That's a great point. Yeah, I totally agree.
Maybe it's because it's not about teenage lovers that end up dead. It's about bigger things like drug wars
that we can identify with. What about a line such as "sit your $5 ass down before I make change"? I mean, that's a fucking amazing line. That's great. This whole movie is drops. It's fantastic. Carolyn, we gave you some homework.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to check in with you about the musical genre and accompanying dance culture, club culture that goes along with New Jack City. It's called
New Jack Swing.
New Jack Swing. Tell us all about it if you can.
Well, I'm not a music hit.
Oh wait, hold on, Shrishma. Yes.
No, I'm so sorry, Carolyn.
No, go ahead.
No, we keep interrupting you. You need to talk.
No, I'm so sorry. I was just gonna say I wanted to call out Flavor Flav.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's great to see him. They have him up there acting like he's doing more than what Flavor Flav is expected to do, which is just MC and jump around, basically. But it's like, hey, everybody, this guy. And he's like, yeah, all right. He's there to help introduce God.
Shout out to Flavor Flav.
Yes.
So yeah, New Jack Swing. I am not a music historian, and I am not going to claim to be one. And I'm sure that we could call someone, and if any one of our listeners has someone that would like to be the expert on this, please, let's go ahead. What I'm going to give you is very, very high light brushstrokes on it, and essentially music that is a combination of like R&B, disco, jazz, you name it, and kind of like combining it together. From what my research showed, this is like one of like the primary, like first really successful examples would have been Janet Jackson's album Control.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say more from the dance standpoint. that like.
Okay, well, do you want me to fill in some musical gaps and then we'll get to the dance?
Yeah, yes, only because like I'm not going to be able to tell you the producers' names or anything, or like like all the ins and outs of music. But like I can tell you from a dance, it was this kind of music is really big for like dance genres.
And it was a huge. I mean, it comes out of the '80s, New Jack Swing, and yeah, it's dance focused, and it does use a particular type of swing beat, but that swing beat comes through a synthesizer. It's a synthesized sonic space basically. So we're getting these samples of analog instruments. So it's a synthesizer basically. You know what a synthesizer is. It almost sounds like a violin. You get the idea. So we're using synths to make this type of dance music, but it's also combined with really smooth harmonies and like soulful singing, like deeply soulful singing. So we see in this picture the group Guy. They're brought on stage at one point, and Guy is really like a sort of epicenter for this genre because the guys who make up the group Guy and are singing so smoothly, so sweetly, they go off to work with other artists too. So one guy starts Blackstreet later on. The other big genre person for this one is Bobby Brown, who got really big in the late 80s. Rex and Effects was another one. And what's interesting about New Jack Swing, I think, is it does come from black club life, that culture, right? But it mainstreamed really quickly. So people,
because it's good.
Yeah, people love to dance, and people love those smooth harmonies. They love soulful singing.
I'll be honest with you. Like this music came on, and I was like, the dance beat, and like, because all you want to do is like bop and dance, and like,
I mean that's every New Jack Swing song, and this becomes mainstreamed into like if you are watching an episode of Full House and DJ goes to the school dance. The bed of background music that they're playing is New Jack Swing. If you watch a commercial in 1988, it's going to have New Jack Swing in the background like that. That just caught the moment for that part of the pop landscape, the non-guitar oriented part of the pop landscape. So
which was, a very different vibe. And I would say like all this kind of like wrapped up into hip hop culture, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And yes,
and we would say
hip hop is a dance genre, but also like you would have had like your like more classic jazz that you might have seen like on Broadway or like Bob Fosse or something, which was its own very balletically based European whiteness, where this kind of music is giving you like it's more the social dances, the popular dances. Like that's what I would say. Like this, if like social media had been around, this would have been TikTok.
Yeah,
it would have been dabbing and all of that still exists today. We don't have any of that TikTok stuff without having New Jack Swing.
Right. Ghostbusters 2 soundtrack too, by the way. Shrishma, yes, go.
No, I was just gonna say like we would say the 90s is where like hip hop made the transition to becoming more mainstream and global, if you will.
And consider this is before all that death row shit. This is before. Exactly. This assuming this was shot in 90, right? I mean, this is. There's no Doggy Style. There's no Chronic at this point. That stuff. There's no Ready to Die. That stuff does not exist. That entire genre has yet to be. It's happening.
East Coast, West Coast, California.
Well, I mean, you got Public Enemy. You got NWA, right? Ice-T at this point is what an interesting character because he's on he's on a show now, right? Or has been for many years.
He was on CS Special Victims Unit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing because he comes from true hardcore rap roots. Like he's a fucking bad
and like heavy metal.
And Body Count. Of course, I mean, like one of the most controversial musical productions of the era. Of course, Cop Killer, famously.
Yeah.
And he was actually apparently very concerned about being in this movie because if it wasn't a success, he thought it might injure his credibility as streetwise rap guy, right? So like, oh, you tried to go Hollywood and now you're back to putting out records or whatever. So this was kind of a gamble for him because he had and continues to have a ton of street cred. So, and again, as we talked about, it's the 90s. That shit matters. What's that?
I think he's just got.
You know what Ice-T's full name is?
What's his name?
Tracy Lawrence Marrow.
Oh, Tracy Marrow.
Better known as Ice-T.
I had no idea. Oh, okay.
I didn't know either.
Okay. Well, he's awesome.
I was going to guess he was a Terrence.
Okay.
Yeah. Guys, my computer is about to die.
And we're probably pretty close to be. I don't know, Shrishma, do you have much more to say about this, or?
No, I enjoyed this watch. I think it was the first time I watched it. I do want to say that this movie didn't make it all the way to Malaysia, so I never, was exposed to this
that would be a
movie
push.
at that time.
That would be a push.
But yeah, I think it was a good. At the end, it was very nice to see a lot of early phases of a lot of actors that we know very, very well today.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary to see. So, you're going to keep this, Shrishma?
I would keep this. Yes.
Okay, great. And Carolyn, how are you feeling about it? We keep watching this thing?
I'm going to keep it. I'm going to watch it again. We're going to keep watching it, and we're probably going to keep talking about it.
Yes, I think we should. I want to.
It's
if this
more than worthy of keeping,
if this show doesn't
more than worthy of continuing to talk about in American culture.
Agreed. And if this show does nothing else, I want to reinvigorate a general cultural enthusiasm for the film New Jack City. This is a yes for me, of course. I have my notes here. Can I just run through the notes real quick, just in case we missed anything? Okay, Pookie goes to rehab. Burton Batman. Oh, the Spotlight Club has a lot of balloons for an adult club. Yeah. I have a note here. Scarface, the Carter Burns, Lil Wayne, of course. Sexy movie. The scene. Yeah, we talked about that. It turns out that Nino killed Scotty's mom, Ice-T's mom, so that's part of their, the larger drama. I want to shoot you so bad, my dick's hard. Again, Shakespearean. I did think it was notable that the prosecuting attorney, Ms. Hawkins, is an African-American woman, and the defense attorney is a white guy with a ponytail. Oh my God.
Yep.
And also, do you guys know who shot Nino at the end? You remember the old man who shoots Nino?
Oh, I know who he is, but is there some relevance?
The ponytails were bad.
Oh, wait, Carolyn, are you behind?
Wasn't he on The Wire?
Maybe you're behind.
Yeah.
Carolyn's 8 years behind. So, the guy who shoots Nino is the guy who plays Del Paxton in That Thing You Do, the old jazz guy who talks with Tom Everett Scott.
No, I can hear you. You're good. Go ahead. Say it.
We're way behind. We're way behind.
I think I'm behind for you guys, but I'm hearing you guys on time.
This is a great experience.
It's awesome. What a way to end. What a way to go out.
But we need to know what Carolyn's movie is for next time.
Well, I know. I've got one more thing to say, too.
Okay, go ahead.
But I want Carolyn to hear that it's Del Paxton first.
It's Del Paxton. Del Paxton.
That was supposed to be my big reveal, and everyone's like,
my computer
Del Paxton,
dying.
the jazz drummer.
What? Oh my
God. Sissy, I love you. You're doing great. You're going to hear this in about 10 minutes. Okay. The last note I have.
Guys, I got to go. Bye.
It's like messages from the past or future.
The last note I have about this, and it's, I haven't seen it noted anywhere, but I also haven't really looked that hard for it, but I've discovered something.
I did. I heard it's Del Paxton.
Okay, so what the fuck was I talking? Okay, so I've made a discovery. It was by accident. Mm-hmm. Before I watched New Jack City this a couple weeks ago, the same day, like that morning, I was watching. Earlier that morning, I was watching the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Okay.
From I think 1990, I believe, and so like same era and everything. And I just so happened to be watching it, and then watched this movie. And what I noticed watching them back to back is that number one, it's the same New York City, right? It's the same that we're dealing with, so it looks very similar. And number two, there's actual B-roll that is the same. It's the same film used in both movies. And it's a specific shot of New York. It's a skyline shot where the clouds behind, it's like the skyline is silhouetted black. The sky is a weird purplish color. It looks like a comic book. You can see why they shot this for the Turtles. And then there are blue lights lining the Brooklyn Bridge, I think. So it's very specific. Like it stuck out to me. I was like, when watching Turtles, I was like, oh, that's a nice shot. Great shot. And then seeing it again, I was like, is this the same? And I pulled them both up. Identical B-roll. So Ninja Turtles and New Jack City are somehow
linked to each other. But then I'm sure if you search there, it's been used several times again or before. I'm
going to do some more homework because we might have another Hilda Crane's bedroom on our hands here, where it's like the Brooklyn Bridge purple cloud shot. Like it's here, and here. But I mean, it's that was early 90s. That's New Jack City,
Right.
So, okay. This has been a very interesting chat. It got bizarre towards the end. Carolyn has left the chat. She's so far behind that she's actually just evacuated from the chat. We didn't get her movie.
That's what I was saying. We didn't get her movie. Maybe we can message her.
Okay, you got that?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I will fill. Doing a terrible job.
Are you supposed to be filling the time with some?
I know. I was checking my notes to see if I missed what I'd missed, but fashion-wise, I mean, yeah, like the shoulder pads. So wide, so many Kangol hats in this movie. Gold is a big statement piece. We got a lot of chains. Yeah, big chain energy in this. Rings. Nino, he's dressing kind of like. I wonder which ideas came first. Like, did Michael Jackson steal Nino's military code ideas, or was it the other way around? Because, Wesley Snipes, he was in Michael Jackson's Bad video. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So there's overlap there.
I mean, I think they're all borrowing from each other. It was, in the early 90s.
Yeah, and it was the times, and military jackets always look cool. So. Okay. Oh, my goodness.
So... So her movie for next week, or our assignment for next time, is 1991's Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken.
Wow.
Have you watched this?
We saw it in the theater, yeah.
Okay.
This was a very important movie for Carolyn, and you will understand why. Do you know what this is?
No.
Okay.
Let me watch it. Don't.
Yep. No.
We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So... What a good time this was. New Jack City. Let's bring it back.
Yes.
The only other thing, I did have one other thing, was just a weird memory. And I thought it was the Cosby Show, but I don't think it is. Like the times don't line up, but there was a sitcom that was on that I think was like a mostly black cast sitcom, and the son had a bedroom, and in his bedroom was the New Jack City poster on his wall. So like every episode you can see New Jack City. I can't remember what show it would be. But if you know out there in listener land, please let me know which sitcom character from the early 1990s had a New Jack City poster up on their wall. Right. I would love to remember that. But anyway, until next time, you guys, thank you so much, Shrishma Naik.
My pleasure, Justin Zeppa.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you so much, Dr. Sister, where and whenever you are. And next week, Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken. And until that time, please never forget that this has been Old Movie Time Machine. Whoops. All 90s. Woo-hoo. Damn. Crack.
I'll see you on the internext.